The massive council chamber on Nexus Prime had never been so quiet. Ambassador Jin-So Park sat in the human section, watching as panic spread across the faces of alien representatives. The emergency session had been called just hours ago, and the news was worse than anyone imagined. High Chancellor Velaran stood at the center podium, her tall, deer-like form trembling slightly. The Kalari leader's usually graceful movements seemed stiff with fear. "The Outer Rim colonies have gone completely silent," she announced. 17 star systems. No response to any communication attempts. Admiral Korthval of the Morthul shifted his tentacled bulk in the aquatic section. His voice bubbled through the translation system. "Our deep space sensors detected massive energy signatures before the blackouts. Something is consuming entire planets." Park remained still, her expression neutral. She had heard whispers from human intelligence networks, but the Council had always dismissed human reports as overly aggressive paranoia. Now, they were learning the cost of ignoring warnings from the galaxy's best military minds. A holographic display flickered to life above the chamber. The image showed the Kepler border system, or what remained of it. 3 planets hung in space like broken shells, their surfaces stripped down to molten cores. Massive, dark shapes moved between them, too large and wrong to be natural. "The Devourer swarm has returned," whispered Dr. Thalaine. The zephyrite crystal formations on her silicon-based body glowing with distress. The ancient records spoke of them. Biomechanical entities that consume everything in their path. A new transmission crackled through the chamber speakers. The voice was desperate, filled with static and terror. "This is Captain Vorek of the border station, Gamma 7. They're everywhere. The ships. They're not ships at all. They're alive. They're consuming the planets themselves, drinking the stellar radiation. Send everything you have. Send." The transmission cut to white noise. Chancellor Velaran's voice shook. "That was received 3 hours ago. We deployed the 3rd Defense Fleet immediately. 47 vessels, our best crews." She paused, struggling with the words. 17 ships returned. The survivors report that conventional weapons had no effect. The Devourers simply absorbed the energy and grew larger. Park watched the alien representatives argue among themselves. The Skyborn flapped their wings nervously, discussing evacuation routes. The Morthul calculated impossible odds with their mathematical minds. The Kalari spoke of diplomatic solutions that could never work against mindless hunger. "We must consolidate our remaining fleets," Admiral Korthval suggested. "Create a defensive line around the core worlds." "And abandon the outer colonies?" demanded Representative Qualin of the Asteroid Miners Union. "There are billions of lives out there. Better to save some than lose all," replied the Admiral coldly. Park had heard enough. She stood slowly, and the chamber gradually fell silent. All eyes turned to the human representative. She was smaller than most aliens present, but something in her bearing commanded attention. "You're talking about running," Park said simply. "About letting them consume half the galaxy while you hide behind defensive lines. Do you have a better suggestion, Ambassador?" Chancellor Velaran asked. There was a note of desperation in her voice. Park looked around the chamber, meeting alien eyes with her steady gaze. "What about the human territories? We have fleets. We have weapons. We have soldiers who don't run from impossible odds." A ripple of uncomfortable silence spread through the chamber. Finally, Representative Zithar of the Trade Federation spoke up. "The Council voted unanimously to restrict human military operations outside your own space. Your warfare methods were deemed barbarically aggressive. Too violent for civilized space," added Dr. Thalaine. "Your species treats combat like hunting. It disturbs the other council members." Park nodded slowly. "I remember that vote. You called us predators. You said our military doctrine was unsuitable for a peaceful galaxy." She gestured toward the holographic display still showing the ravaged Kepler system. "How's that peaceful galaxy working out for you?" Admiral Korthval's tentacles writhed with agitation. "The human approach to warfare is unsettling. They pursue enemies across multiple star systems. They board hostile vessels during active combat. It goes against all rational military doctrine. And yet we win," Park replied calmly. The chamber erupted in argument. Some representatives demanded immediate human assistance. Others insisted that human methods were too extreme, that there had to be another way. The Kalari delegation spoke passionately about preserving their moral principles even in the face of extinction. Chancellor Veleron raised her hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, she looked directly at Park. If the Council were to formally request human military intervention, what would be your response? Park considered the question for a long moment. Around her, alien representatives leaned forward, waiting for her answer. Outside the station's massive windows, emergency fleets were already mobilizing, preparing for battles they couldn't win with conventional tactics. "That would depend," Park said finally, "on whether you're ready to accept what human intervention actually means." "Explain," demanded the Chancellor. "When humans hunt, we don't stop until the prey is dead," Park said quietly. "We don't accept surrender. We don't negotiate. We don't show mercy to things that threaten innocent lives. If you call us in, we will eliminate the devourer swarm completely. Every single entity, every breeding ground, every trace they ever existed." The chamber fell silent again. The implications of Park's words sank in slowly. "That seems excessive," whispered Dr. Thalen. "That's survival," Park corrected. "The devourers won't stop consuming. They can't be reasoned with or contained. They have to be destroyed totally, or they'll return stronger than before." Another emergency transmission interrupted the debate. This time, it was from the Cygnus sector, 3 systems closer to the galactic core. "Mayday. Mayday. Unknown vessels approaching. They're not responding to communication. Oh gods, they're eating the space station. The metal is just dissolving into them. Help us. Someone, help us." The transmission ended abruptly. Chancellor Veleron looked around the chamber at her fellow representatives. Fear was written clearly on every alien face. The civilized galaxy they had built was crumbling, consumed by ancient nightmares they had no ability to fight. "I call for an emergency vote," she announced. "All in favor of formally requesting human military intervention against the devourer swarm?" One by one, hands, tentacles, wings, and crystalline formations rose in the air. Even those who had opposed human methods most strongly voted yes. When faced with extinction, principles became luxuries they could no longer afford. The vote was unanimous. Park nodded and activated her communication device. "This is Ambassador Park to Human High Command. The Council has formally requested military intervention against an existential threat. I am transmitting all available data. Recommend immediate deployment of Predator Fleet assets." As she ended the transmission, Park looked around at the silent alien faces watching her. They had no idea what they had just unleashed upon their enemies. But they were about to learn why predators ruled at the top of every food chain. The Human Command Center on Terra Nova looked nothing like the elegant council facilities. Where alien architecture favored curves and artistic beauty, humans built for function. The walls were gray metal, the lighting was harsh white, and every surface served a purpose. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a massive tactical display, studying the incoming data from the Council. "How long since the transmission came in?" she asked her aide. 14 minutes, Admiral," replied Lieutenant Kim. "Ambassador Park sent everything they have on the devourer swarm." Chen had been expecting this call for months. Human intelligence had detected the energy signatures long before the Council's sensors picked up anything. Their deep space monitoring stations had tracked the consumption patterns moving inward from the galactic rim. But when human representatives tried to warn the Council, they were told their military paranoia was unnecessary in civilized space. Now 17 star systems were gone, and the Council was begging for the predators they had tried so hard to keep away. Captain Lee Minjun entered the command center, his uniform still bearing scorch marks from a training exercise. "You called for me, Admiral?" "Look at this," Chen said, pointing to the holographic display. The data showed massive biomechanical entities, some over a kilometer in length. They moved through space like living ships, but the energy readings were unlike anything in the Council databases. "What do you see?" Lee studied the display carefully. As commander of the elite Striker Squadron, he had trained for scenarios exactly like this. Hive organisms. They share information instantly, across vast distances. Notice how they move in perfect coordination, even when separated by light years. "And their weakness?" Chen asked. "They've never fought real predators." Lee replied immediately. "Look at their attack patterns. They overwhelm through size and numbers, then consume at leisure. They expect their prey to run or hide. They don't expect something to chase them back." 1. C. Dr. Elena Rodriguez joined them at the display. As the military's chief xenobiologist, she had been studying fragments of devourer technology for 3 years. Human salvage teams had recovered pieces from ancient battlefields that the Council claimed were empty space. "The biological scans are fascinating," Rodriguez said. "They're not entirely organic. The biomechanical integration is beyond anything we've seen. But that's also their limitation. In fort. Their fort. Their ask, end quote. Their read, end quote. Explain," Chen ordered. "They've evolved to process organic matter and simple metals. Their digestive systems are perfect for consuming planets and basic technology, but they've never encountered our quantum disruptor technology. Their biology can't adapt to weapons that attack matter at the subatomic level." Chen smiled grimly. It was the kind of smile that had made her feared throughout human space. "Dr. Rodriguez, how long to retrofit our quantum disruptors for anti-biomechanical use?" "The technology already exists, Admiral. We've been testing it for 2 years, ever since we suspected the Devourers might return. 6 hours to install on all fleet vessels. Make it happen." Chen turned to address the entire command center. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Council has finally admitted they need us. Signal all Predator fleet assets. We're going hunting." The response was immediate and electric. Officers who had been waiting months for real combat jumped to their tasks. Communications officers sent coded messages to ships throughout the human territories. Engineering teams began loading the specialized weapons that the Council had banned from their space. Lee pulled up the fleet roster on his personal display. "We can deploy 847 vessels within 12 hours. That includes the new stealth carriers and the experimental boarding assault ships." "Boarding ships?" Chen raised an eyebrow. "Against kilometer-long biomechanical entities?" "The simulations show it's our best chance," Rodriguez explained. "Devourers have thick outer hulls but minimal internal defenses. They've never faced an enemy that deliberately enters their bodies during combat. Our Marines can attack their nerve centers from inside." "Our Marines." A new voice interrupted them. "That sounds like suicide." They turned to see Ambassador Qualith, the Council's military liaison. The tall, thin alien looked distinctly uncomfortable in the functional human environment. His translator box struggled with human military terminology. "Ambassador," Chen greeted him politely. "I assume you're here to coordinate with Council forces?" "Actually, I'm here to observe human military methods," Qualith admitted. "The Council wishes to understand how you intend to address this situation." "Well, we intend to kill them all," Lee said simply. Qualeth's alien features shifted with distress. "Surely there are other options?" Containment? Negotiation? The Devourers are clearly intelligent beings. Perhaps we could find common ground. Chen walked over to a smaller display, showing the most recent Devourer attacks. Ambassador, watch this sensor recording from the Kepler system. The display showed a Devourer ship approaching a civilian transport. Instead of demanding surrender or attempting communication, the biomechanical entity simply opened and swallowed the transport whole. The screams of 300 civilians filled the speakers for exactly 4 seconds before cutting off. There's your negotiation, Chen said coldly. They consume everything that lives. They don't take prisoners. They don't accept surrender. They don't even acknowledge that other species exist as anything more than food. But surely, Qualith began. No. Chen cut him off. This is why the council needed to call us. You think like prey animals. You look for diplomatic solutions because that's how civilized beings solve problems. But the Devourers aren't civilized beings. They're a force of nature. Like a hurricane or a plague. You don't negotiate with a hurricane. Ambassador, you either survive it or you don't. The command center speakers crackled with incoming reports. Admiral, Predator Fleet Gamma reports ready for deployment. Quantum disruptors installed and tested. Admiral, stealth reconnaissance ships are requesting permission to enter the consumption zone for advanced scouting. Admiral, volunteer rates are at 300%. Every crew in the fleet is requesting combat assignment. Chen listened to the reports with satisfaction. This was what humans did best. When faced with an impossible enemy, they didn't calculate the odds or plan defensive strategies. They grabbed weapons and ran directly at the threat. Qualith was studying the volunteer reports with obvious confusion. I don't understand. Your crews know this is likely a suicide mission. Why are they volunteering in such numbers? Our likes made. Why? Our likes. Why? Our likes. Why? Our likes. Why? Our likes. Our likes. Captain Lee answered him. Because if we don't stop the Devourers here, they'll eventually reach human space. And we have families too. But there must be some fear, Qualith insisted. Of course, Chen replied. We're not stupid. We know most of us probably won't come back. But that's not what matters. Then what does matter? Chen gestured toward the tactical display showing the advancing Devourer swarm. What matters is that when this is over, there won't be a single Devourer left alive in this galaxy. What matters is that our children never have to face this threat. The final fleet reports came in over the next hour. 847 ships of various classes, all equipped with experimental anti-biomechanical weapons. Crews that had been training for this exact scenario for years. Marines who specialized in boarding hostile vessels during active combat. As the last ship reported ready status, Chen addressed the entire fleet through the communication system. Predator Fleet, this is Admiral Chen. The Council has finally acknowledged what we've known for months. An ancient evil has returned to consume our galaxy. They've asked for our help because they can't handle it themselves. She paused, letting that sink in. Today we show them why humans don't ask for help when monsters come calling. We go out there, and we do what we do best. We hunt down every single Devourer in space, and we make them extinct. The fleet response came back as a unified roar from 50,000 human voices. Ambassador Qualith stared at Chen with something approaching terror. You're not just going to fight them. You're going to enjoy it. Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. Ambassador, you called us predators. Did you think we were going to apologize for our nature? The Predator fleet launched exactly 12 hours after receiving the Council's plea for help. 847 ships heading directly toward the heart of the consumption zone, where 3 star systems had already gone completely dark. Behind them, they left Ambassador Qualith standing in the human command center, finally beginning to understand what the Council had unleashed upon their enemies. The Kepler border system was a graveyard of worlds. Captain Park Soo-jin, guided her stealth reconnaissance ship through the debris field that had once been the fourth planet. Massive chunks of dead rock drifted in space, still glowing with residual heat where something had stripped away everything down to the molten core. "Getting visual contact now," reported her sensor operator, Ensign Walsh. "Distance 15,000 kilometers, and closing." Through the forward viewports, the crew of the HSS Silent Hunter got their first look at a living devourer ship. It was nothing like the sterile recordings from Council databases. The biomechanical entity stretched over a kilometer in length, its hull pulsing with organic rhythms. Sections of its body shifted and flowed like liquid metal, while other parts remained rigid as battleship armor. Strange lights moved beneath its surface like blood through alien veins. "That thing is eating the asteroid belt," whispered Navigator Chen. "Look at the feeding tubes. Dozens of flexible appendages extended from the devourer's body, each one wrapped around chunks of space rock. The asteroids dissolved slowly, their matter flowing into the creature's main body through the feeding tubes. As it consumed the mineral wealth, the devourer grew visibly larger. Park activated the ship's long-range sensors. "I'm reading at least 40 more entities in this system. They're everywhere." She paused, studying the display. "And they're all feeding on the star itself." The viewports automatically dimmed as the ship's sensors detected massive energy bursts from Kepler's sun. Enormous biomechanical structures had formed a partial ring around the star, drawing stellar matter directly into their bodies. The star was noticeably dimmer than it should have been. "Captain," Walsh called urgently. "Incoming transmission from Council Fleet Bravo. They're requesting immediate assistance." Park switched the communication to the main speakers. The voice of Admiral Korthval crackled through, filled with panic. "Any human vessels in the area? This is Admiral Korthval of Council Fleet Bravo. We are under attack by multiple devourer entities. Conventional weapons have no effect. Repeat. Conventional weapons have no effect. We need immediate assistance." Through the sensor display, Park could see the Council fleet's position. 12 ships of various alien designs were fighting desperately against 3 devourer entities. The alien weapons, plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion missiles struck the biomechanical hulls and simply disappeared. The energy was absorbed and converted, making the devourers grow stronger with every hit. "Ma'am," Chen reported, "the devourers are using some kind of phase technology. They're shifting in and out of normal space to avoid damage." Park watched as one of the devourer entities seemed to become translucent, allowing a full missile barrage to pass harmlessly through its body. When the weapons had passed, it solidified again and extended feeding tubes toward the Council ships. "All human vessels, this is Captain Park of Silent Hunter," she broadcast on the tactical frequency. "I have eyes on the enemy. Beginning reconnaissance attack pattern. Follow my lead. Olo be farm. Olo be farm." She didn't wait for acknowledgement. The Silent Hunter dropped its stealth field and accelerated toward the nearest devourer at maximum burn. Behind her, 12 other human ships appeared from various hiding spots among the debris. They had been waiting and watching, studying the enemy, before engaging. "Quantum disruptors armed and ready," reported Weapons Officer Lieutenant Kim. "Fire when in range," Park ordered. "Target the feeding tubes first. Let's see how they like losing their dinner." The human weapons were unlike anything the Council used. Instead of trying to burn through the devourer's hull, the quantum disruptors attacked the bonds between atoms themselves. Where the energy beam struck, matter simply stopped existing at the subatomic level. The effect on the devourer was immediate and violent. Its feeding tubes severed instantly, spraying biomechanical fluid into space. The creature's body convulsed. And for the first time in recorded history, a devourer made a sound. The psychic scream echoed through the minds of every living being in the system. "Direct hit," Kim reported. "Target is damaged but still mobile." The wounded devourer turned toward the Silent Hunter, its biomechanical hull reshaping itself into something more aggressive. Weapon ports opened along its body, and streams of corrosive energy lanced out toward the human ship. Park threw the silent hunter into a spinning dive, using a chunk of destroyed planet as cover. The Devourer's weapons ate through solid rock like acid, but couldn't quite track the rapidly maneuvering human vessel. "This is Commander Torres aboard boarding ship Relentless," came a new voice over the tactical frequency. "Park, can you keep that thing distracted for 30 seconds? Park grinned fiercely. Torres was known throughout the human fleet as the best boarding assault specialist alive. If anyone could successfully attack a Devourer from the inside, it would be him. 30 seconds, Park confirmed. "You're insane, Torres." "So, I've been told." "Launching boarding pods now." Through her sensors, Park watched as the Relentless fired a spread of armored boarding pods directly at the wounded Devourer. The pods were designed to penetrate enemy hulls during active combat, but no one had ever tested them against biomechanical entities this large. The Devourer's automated defenses engaged immediately. Energy beams and projectile weapons tried to destroy the incoming pods, but human boarding technology was built to survive exactly this kind of assault. 3 pods made contact with the creature's hull and began burning their way inside. "Penetration successful," Torres reported. "We're inside the target. Beginning. Search for nerve center." Park continued her evasive maneuvers, drawing the Devourer's attention while Torres and his Marines fought their way through the creature's internal passages. On her tactical display, she could see other human ships engaging additional Devourer entities throughout the system. Unlike the Council forces, the humans weren't trying to fight from safe distances. They were closing to point-blank range, using quantum disruptors and boarding assaults to tear the biomechanical entities apart from the inside out. "Contact with hostile internal defenses." Torres's voice was strained now. "These things have some kind of immune system. The walls are trying to digest us. We. Can you reach the nerve center?" Park asked, while dodging another stream of corrosive energy. "Affirmative. We're cutting through what looks like a brain stem. Stand by." 4. Torres's transmission cut off as the Devourer suddenly went rigid. Its weapons stopped firing, and its body began to collapse in on itself. Within minutes, the kilometer-long entity had dissolved into a cloud of inert biomechanical matter. "Boarding team to Silent Hunter." Torres's voice came back online. "Target neutralized. 1 down, 39 to go." Across the system, similar battles were raging. Human ships darted between the massive Devourers like wolves attacking elephants, using speed and quantum weapons to cripple the biomechanical entities before boarding them for internal assault. It was a tactic that no Council species would have attempted, considering it nearly suicidal. But humans had never let impossible odds stop them from protecting what mattered. Admiral Korthval's fleet was watching in stunned silence as the human vessels systematically destroyed enemies that had seemed invincible moments before. The Morthul commander's tentacles writhed with amazement. "How are they doing this?" He transmitted to Park. "Our weapons had no effect at all. Different tools for different prey," Park replied, while watching another Devourer dissolve under quantum bombardment. "You build weapons to fight other civilized species. We build weapons to kill monsters." The battle continued for 6 hours. By the end, 17 Devourer entities had been completely destroyed, along with 4 human ships and their crews. The casualty rate would have horrified the Council. But for humans, it was simply the price of victory. As the last Devourer corpse drifted apart in space, Park surveyed the battlefield. The Kepler system was saved, but barely, and this was just one small part of the Devourer swarm. "Captain," Walsh reported from the sensor station, "long-range scans are detecting massive Devourer movement. They're consolidating their forces and moving toward the galactic core." Park nodded grimly. The real battle was just beginning, but they had proven something important today. The Devourers could be killed. They weren't invincible forces of nature. They were just another kind of predator. And humans were very good at killing predators that threatened their pack. "Signal the fleet," Park ordered. "We pursue immediately. No rest, no repair stops. We stay on their trail until every last one of them is dead." Behind her, Admiral Korthval's surviving ships struggled to keep up with the human pursuit formation. The Council forces weren't built for sustained combat operations, but the humans showed no signs of slowing down. They had tasted first blood, and now the hunt was truly beginning. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of her flagship, watching as the pursuit continued into its 5th day. The human fleet had been chasing the Devourer swarm across 3 star systems without rest, something that Council forces were calling impossible. But Chen had spent her career studying persistence, hunting, and she knew that humans excelled at wearing down prey through relentless pursuit. "Status report," she ordered. 17 Devourer entities destroyed in the last 48 hours, reported Commander Park Young-ho. "We're maintaining contact with the main swarm. They're trying to reach the Cygnus Nebula, probably to regroup and feed. Our ships? 60% combat effective. We've lost 12 vessels and crews are operating on stimulants and determination. The Council ships that tried to keep up with us had to drop out yesterday." Admiral Korthval said his crews couldn't maintain this pace. Chen nodded. That was the difference between humans and other species. When Council forces fought, they did so with careful logistics and planned rest periods. When humans hunted, they simply didn't stop until their prey was dead. "Doctor." Elena Rodriguez approached with a datapad filled with analysis reports. "Admiral, we've been studying the Devourer remains from the battles. I think we've figured out why they're running." End quote. "Explain." "Their hive mind operates on fear responses," Rodriguez said. "When they encounter prey that runs or hides, it triggers feeding behaviors. But our aggressive pursuit is causing something they've never experienced before. They're actually afraid of us." Chen studied the biological readings on Rodriguez's pad. "These creatures have consumed entire civilizations. What could they possibly fear from us? Think about it from their perspective," Rodriguez explained. "For millions of years, they've been apex predators. Everything they meet either runs away or gets consumed. But humans are pursuing them across the galaxy, destroying their ships, and boarding their bodies during combat. We're acting like the predator and treating them like prey." Captain Lee Min-jun joined them at the tactical display. His Striker squadron had been leading the pursuit, pushing their ships far beyond normal operational limits. "The pattern analysis confirms it." Lee Min-jun. "The pattern analysis confirms it," he said. "Every time we destroy one of their entities, the rest of the swarm changes course. They're not just retreating randomly. They're actively trying to escape from us." "How long can we maintain this pursuit?" Chen asked. "Indefinitely," Lee replied without hesitation. "My pilots are running on 4 hours of sleep in the last 3 days, but morale has never been higher. Every crew in the fleet knows we're finally doing what we were born for." Ambassador Jinseo Park's voice crackled over the communication system from her position with the Council fleet. "Admiral Chen, I'm receiving urgent transmissions from Nexus Prime. The Council is requesting a status update." "Put them through," Chen ordered. Chancellor Veleran's worried face appeared on the main screen. The Kalari leader looked exhausted, and her elegant features were drawn with stress. "Admiral Chen, the Council is concerned about your pursuit methods. You've been chasing the Devourers for 5 days without rest. Surely your crews need time to recover?" "My crews are fine, Chancellor," Chen replied. "We're operating within acceptable human parameters." "But the casualty reports," Veleran protested. 12 ships lost. Hundreds of crew members killed. How can you continue at such a pace?" Chen's expression hardened. "Chancellor, How many people lived in the 17 star systems that the Devourers consumed before we arrived? Veleron hesitated. Approximately 42 billion. 42 billion. And how many have died since we began our pursuit? The Devourers haven't consumed any additional systems since you engaged them. Exactly. Every hour we delay, every moment we give them to regroup, costs lives. My crews understand this. That's why they keep fighting, even when they're exhausted. Another voice joined the communication. Admiral Korthval, speaking from his medical bay, where he was recovering from combat stress. Admiral Chen, with respect, your pursuit methods violate every principle of civilized warfare. No species should fight with such intensity. Li stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, your civilized warfare was failing completely before we arrived. You lost 60% of your fleet in the first engagement. But at least we followed proper military protocols, Korthval insisted. We allowed for crew rest, equipment maintenance, strategic planning. Your forces are operating like wild animals. Chen's smile was sharp. Yes, we are. And that's why we're winning. Doctor, Rodriguez interrupted with urgent new data. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the Cygnus Nebula. The Devourers aren't just running. They're calling for reinforcements. The tactical display updated to show hundreds of new contacts emerging from deep space. More Devourer entities, some even larger than the ones they had been fighting, were converging on the nebula from multiple directions. How many? Chen asked quietly. At least 300 additional entities, Rodriguez reported. They're coming from all across the galactic rim. If they succeed in joining with the main swarm, they'll have enough force to consume the entire galaxy, Chen finished. Chancellor Veleron's image flickered with interference as emergency alarms sounded in the background at Nexus Prime. Admiral Chen, the Council is authorizing immediate evacuation of all core worlds. We're preparing to abandon the galactic government and retreat to the outer colonies. Negative, Chancellor. We're not retreating. But Admiral, the odds are irrelevant. Chen cut her off. Dr. Rodriguez, how long until the Devourer reinforcements reach the nebula? Gen Credence 1. Jennings 7 time. 18 hours at current speeds. Then we have 18 hours to destroy the main swarm before they can link up with their reinforcements. Chen turned to address her bridge crew. Signal all ships. We're accelerating to maximum pursuit speed. I want every human vessel in weapons range of the nebula before those reinforcements arrive. Commander Park checked his displays. Admiral, at that speed, we'll reach the nebula in 12 hours. But our ships will be running on emergency power. No time for repairs. No time for crew rest. Good. The Devourers won't expect us to attack while we're exhausted and damaged. Sometimes, the best tactics are the ones that seem suicidal. Ambassador Park's transmission came through again. Admiral, I'm getting reports from across Council space. Every species is preparing evacuation plans. They think you're leading the entire human fleet to its destruction. Chen looked around at her bridge crew. Every face was grim but determined. These people had volunteered to fight an enemy that consumed entire star systems. They knew the odds better than anyone. From this, Ambassador, send this message to the Council, Chen said clearly. Humans don't evacuate. We don't retreat. We don't abandon innocent lives to monsters. We hunt down our enemies and we destroy them completely, no matter what the cost. She paused, letting her words sink in. Tell them that in 18 hours, this galaxy will either be free of the Devourer threat forever, or there won't be any humans left to complain about our methods. The communication ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Outside the viewports, the stars blurred past as the human fleet pushed their ships beyond safe operational limits. Behind them, The Council forces had dropped out of pursuit, unable to match the pace that humans considered normal for a hunt. Captain Lee moved to Chen's side. "Admiral, you know this is probably a one-way mission. The crew understands that." "I know," Chen replied. "But if we don't stop them here, who will? The Council can't handle this kind of enemy. They're builders and thinkers and diplomats. They're not killers. And we are?" Chen looked out at the stars ahead, where the Cygnus Nebula waited like a dark wound in space. Somewhere, in that twisted region, an ancient evil was preparing to devour everything humanity had ever loved. "Captain, we're about to chase 300 devourer entities into their home territory, outnumbered 4-1, with damaged ships and exhausted crews. Any rational species would call it suicide." She smiled grimly. "Good thing humans aren't rational." The pursuit continued, carrying them toward a battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. And in the darkness ahead, ancient predators were about to learn what it meant to be hunted by something even more dangerous than themselves. The Cygnus Nebula stretched before the human fleet like a wound in space itself. Dark gases swirled in impossible patterns, hiding massive structures that had been built from the bones of consumed civilizations. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the sensor readings that showed what lay waiting in the nebula's depths. "Report," she ordered. 537 Devourer entities confirmed," announced Commander Park Young-ho. "They've formed defensive positions around what appears to be a massive breeding complex. Dr. Rodriguez estimates it could spawn thousands of new entities, if left operational." Chen nodded grimly. The intelligence reports had been accurate. This wasn't just a battle. It was the chance to end the Devourer threat permanently. But the odds were worse than anything humans had ever faced. "What's our fleet status?" 412 vessels still operational. Ammunition at 40%. Quantum disruptor efficiency down to 70% due to continuous use. Crew fatigue is approaching dangerous levels. "And morale?" Park smiled despite the impossible situation. "Admiral, the crews are ready to follow you into hell itself. They know what's at stake." Through the viewports, the nebula pulsed with unnatural light. Deep within its center, something vast was moving. Sensor readings indicated a structure over 50 kilometers in diameter, larger than most space stations. The Overmind, the central intelligence that controlled the entire Devourer swarm. Dr. Rodriguez approached with her final analysis. "Admiral, I've completed the assessment of their defensive positions. They're protecting 3 primary breeding stations and the central Overmind complex. If we can destroy those, the entire swarm loses coordination. Recommendations? Simultaneous assault on all targets. But Admiral..." Rodriguez paused. "To reach the Overmind, someone will have to physically board it. Our quantum disruptors can't penetrate its biomechanical armor from the outside." Chen studied the tactical display. The Devourer swarm had arranged itself in overlapping defensive rings around their breeding facilities. Any attack would face concentrated fire from hundreds of entities, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. "Signal the fleet," Chen ordered. "All ship commanders to conference channel." The communication system came online, connecting Chen with every captain and commander in the human force. Faces appeared on multiple screens, young and old, scarred veterans, and untested rookies, all united by the knowledge that this was humanity's moment of truth. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen began, "we've chased our prey to its home ground. The Devourer swarm has consolidated its forces and is preparing to spawn across the galaxy. If we fail here, every living world will be consumed within a generation." She paused, meeting the eyes of her commanders through the communication channels. "I'm implementing total victory protocol. Every ship will attack simultaneously. No reserves, no tactical retreats, no second chances. We go in with everything we have, and we don't come out until every devourer in that nebula is dead." Captain Lee Min-jun was the first to respond. "Admiral, My striker squadron requests permission to lead the assault on the breeding stations. Granted. Commander Torres, your boarding specialists will accompany me to the Overmind. We're going to put Marines inside that thing and kill it from within. Torres's scarred face grinned fiercely. Ma'am, my people have been waiting their entire lives for a target this big. One by one, the ship commanders acknowledged their orders. No one questioned the suicide nature of the mission. They had all volunteered for this moment when they joined the Predator fleet. Chen closed the communication channel and turned to her bridge crew. Signal Ambassador Park on the Council ship. She needs to witness what comes next. Ambassador Jinseo Park's image appeared on screen from her position with the trailing Council forces. Her face was pale with worry. Admiral Chen. Long-range sensors show massive Devourer activity in the nebula. The Council is urging you to reconsider this assault. Admiral Chen. Tell the Council to watch carefully, Chen replied. They're about to see how humans end threats permanently. The human fleet moved into attack formation. 400 ships against 500 Devourer entities. By any rational calculation, it should have been massacre. But humans had never been particularly rational when it came to protecting their own. All ships, commence attack, Chen ordered. The battle that followed would be remembered as the most savage engagement in galactic history. Human vessels dove directly into the Devourer defensive lines, ignoring the overwhelming firepower directed at them. Quantum disruptors fired continuously, tearing holes in biomechanical hulls while human ships closed to boarding range. Captain Lee's striker squadron carved through the first defensive ring like a blade, sacrificing ship after ship to clear a path to the breeding stations. His own vessel took critical damage from 3 Devourer entities simultaneously. But he kept firing until his quantum disruptors overloaded and tore his ship apart. The explosion took 2 Devourer entities with him. Striker lead is down, reported the tactical officer. Captain Lee's squadron has reached the first breeding station. On the display, Chen watched as human boarding pods slammed into the massive biomechanical structure. Marines poured into the breeding facility, fighting through defensive organisms that tried to digest them alive. Within minutes, the entire station began to collapse as humans destroyed its vital systems from within. 1 breeding station down, announced Commander Park. 2 more to go. But the cost was enormous. Human ships were being destroyed faster than Chen had ever seen, even in the worst battles of her career. For every Devourer they killed, the swarm eliminated 2 human vessels. By any military standard, the assault should have been called off. But humans didn't retreat when the galaxy's survival was at stake. Admiral, we have a clear path to the Overmind, Torres reported from his boarding ship. But it's going to cost us everything. Chen looked around her bridge one last time. These people had followed her across the galaxy, trusted her judgment through impossible battles. And now they were about to die with her in the heart of enemy territory. All ships. This is Admiral Chen. It's been an honor hunting with you. The final assault on the Overmind was pure, savage determination. Chen's flagship led a wedge of human vessels directly at the massive central entity, taking devastating fire from every direction. Ship after ship died around her, but the survivors kept advancing. When they reached boarding range, Chen personally led the assault team into the Overmind's body. The biomechanical passages writhed and shifted, trying to crush the invaders. But human Marines had trained for exactly this kind of nightmare scenario. They fought their way through living corridors that bled when cut, past defensive organisms that attacked with acid and poison, deeper into the entity that controlled the entire Devourer swarm. Chen lost half her Marines in the first kilometer, but the survivors kept advancing. At the center of the Overmind, they found something that might have been a brain or might have been a computer. It pulsed with alien intelligence, and Chen could feel its attention focusing on her with malevolent curiosity. For the first time in its existence, the Overmind tried to communicate. Images flooded Chen's mind. Offers of tribute, promises of partnership, desperate attempts at negotiation. Chen's response was to place a quantum disruptor charge directly against the entity's central cortex. "This is for every world you consumed," she whispered, and activated the device. The explosion tore the Overmind apart from within, sending cascading failures through the entire Devourer network. Across the nebula, 500 biomechanical entities suddenly went silent as their controlling intelligence died. But Chen didn't live to see her victory. The Overmind's death throes crushed her ship and everyone aboard it. Hours later, the surviving human vessels limped out of the nebula. Fewer than 50 ships remained from the original 400, but their mission was complete. Every Devourer entity in the galaxy was dead. Their threat ended forever. Ambassador Park transmitted the news to the Council, her voice hollow with grief and awe. "The Devourer swarm has been eliminated. Admiral Chen and the Predator fleet have achieved total victory." The Council chambers on Nexus Prime fell completely silent as the implications sank in. The ancient nightmare that had consumed civilizations for millions of years was extinct, destroyed by a species that the Council had considered too violent for civilized space. Chancellor Veleron was the first to speak. "What of the human survivors?" "They're returning to patrol duties," Park replied quietly. "No victory celebrations, no parades. They've already deployed to monitor the galactic borders. But surely they deserve recognition, honors, some acknowledgement of their sacrifice." Park looked directly at the assembled Council representatives. "They don't want honors, Chancellor. They want to make sure nothing like the Devourers ever threatens the galaxy again." The chamber remained silent for long minutes. Every species present was trying to process what they had witnessed. A military force that fought not for conquest or glory, but for the simple principle that innocent lives should be protected from monsters. Finally, Admiral Korthval spoke for the assembled representatives. "The Council hereby votes to formally recognize human sovereignty over all military operations in Council space. Never again will we question human methods or restrict human fleet movements." The vote was unanimous. As the session ended, Park looked out at the stars visible through the station's windows. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Predator fleet were already taking up defensive positions around vulnerable worlds, ready to face whatever new threats might emerge from the darkness between stars. The galaxy was safe because apex predators stood guard at its borders, and the Council could only watch in respectful silence, finally understanding that sometimes civilization survived only because someone was willing to be more savage than the monsters that threatened it. The hunt was over. The Predators had won, and the galaxy would remember that when true evil emerged from the darkness, humanity had answered the call, without hesitation, without compromise, and without mercy. In the vast emptiness where the Cygnus Nebula had once hosted ancient evil, only debris remained. The Devourer swarm was extinct, and the galaxy could sleep peacefully knowing that Earth's children were watching the night.